Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Notorious Moms, the podcast. And I am here with my very special guest. Guest, introduce yourself to the people.
Hey y'all, I'm Kesha Austin.
Where you from?
I am from Charlotte, but I currently live in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I've been here for several years now, but Texas is definitely home. Definitely home.
Texas. How has the weather been? I hear it's been very hot.
Extremely hot. But we've gotten a reprieve. It's not too hot right now. We're getting some rain, so I'm not gonna complain. But
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I would complain about. Like the weather is one extreme to the next. Like it's either extremely cold or extremely hot.
What's the coldest has been over there, really quick?
I don't know, because when it get cold, I stay in the house. I don't know. It's freezing, snowing, ice. Like
Oh,
I don't know. It gets pretty. Like the wind chill. I know at one time it was like below 8 below. So yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Wow, so that's like New York cold because I'm here
yes,
in New York. So that's for sure like New York cold.
yeah, for sure.
I didn't know that it got so cold like that in Texas. Well, I was hearing like a few years back with the weather change and stuff.
Yes,
Um, global warming.
yeah,
But
yeah,
a lot of people don't believe in that, but it
yeah.
is what it is.
A lot of natives have told me that the weather has not been this extreme.
Uh-huh.
It's just starting. So that adds to your point.
Got you. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And let's dive right into
Mhm.
your brand, which is Bomb Plus Vintage.
Uh-huh.
Um, how did that start? Tell the people what it is. Because some people may not know what it is. I do, but we're gonna leave that to you.
Okay.
And what was your inspiration for starting your brand?
So my mom was definitely my inspiration for starting Bond Plus Vintage. I started the business back in 2019. I didn't do much with it, but what like sparked my starting the business was my going to work every day. And it was sort of like a fashion show. Like I'm just literally getting up, getting dressed, and everybody is like they look at me when I'm walking into the office and they're like, where you get that from? Well, I like your outfit. And I'm just like, I got it from the thrift store. And then some days they're like, I know you didn't get that from the thrift store. And I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
did. So I I started paying attention. Like this is something, And the Lord gave it to me, no doubt. The Lord gave it to me. And I shop for other people, thrift shop for other people throughout the years, like and just could go on the store and boom, boom, bam, get things done. And they still be on one rack.
Right.
So I started personal shopping, and then the business when I started it, COVID hit. So it just
Yes.
set. It just set. After that, I was diagnosed with cancer. So my life was sort of in the spin cycle of the
Right.
washing machine, if I had an analogy for that.
Right.
So things sort of calmed down earlier, well, last year, in the beginning part of this year, and I decided to, commit myself more to my spiritual walk and just myself, just overall, just taking better care of myself. And it came back to me like, wait, what about this? What about, And I actually had started a shoe line, and I was going to dibble and dabble in both, like give this some of my time and give that some of my time. Invested a lot of money, but Bomb ended up taking up all of my resources, and I enjoyed doing it so much. So I just dove straight in, man. And I don't have a daughter, but this business is my daughter. And the
Yeah.
purpose of Bomb Plus Vintage is to provide, um, it's not a boutique, it is a online vintage store for plus size women. So we have shoes, accessories, clothing. We have lingerie. We have sleepwear, other sleepwear. Yeah, we have. I'm looking at everything that's here,
Right.
and we have a good bit of stuff. But the main goal of Bond Plus Vintage is to um, increase Heaven's population by way of fashion, specifically for plus size women. So yes, we have this thing in common that we love fashion and we love to, look good and feel good in our
Yeah.
pieces. But at the end of the day, do we feel good on the inside? and that is to be discussed. That's to be acknowledged. That's to be unveiled. So, yeah.
I love that. Oh my God. So when you talk about now, let's talk about like thrift stores. So you get these pieces from the thrift store, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Now, when you get these pieces, because I know like some people, like I know what a thrift store is. Some people are like a little like, oh, it's a thrift store. People have used it. So how do you like, I wouldn't say like combat, but like, do you get those kind of questions from people? And what do you do as far as your pieces to make sure that they are in great condition and that they could be resold?
Oh, okay. So okay. So I do have a portion of my business where I do resell to resellers.
Hmm.
But primarily my customer base is individuals, women.
Gotcha.
I have on my website, pretty much under every product description, that what the circumstances with the garment is. So I'll outline the fact that this is a used garment. I outline the fact that it is vintage, it's dated, that there may be signs of usage that I may or may not, see. There may be small signs that are not significant. I just lay it all out on my website so that that expectation, what you're getting, what the shipping time is. And as far as the thrift store portion, I do think that, girl, I've heard it all. Like, I've heard that some clothes have spirits, and I'm like, okay,
Spirits.
yeah, like, be careful what you buy at the thrift store because those clothes have spirits. And I'm like, okay, well, um where did those spirits come from? And they're like, other people. And I'm like, oh, okay. So Target. So if I go buy something at Target, the person who hung the clothes on the rack,
Right.
the
That doesn't
person who
make any
tried it
sense.
on, the person who tried it on. Oh, and then when you go to the ATM and take that money out the bank, the person who put the money in the machine, So I'm kind of like, okay, so why is it, unique or specific to a
Right.
Um, so if someone does bring that up, it has never happened, but I'm just willing to educate. I think
Yes.
that there's a big thing right now about being cleanly and just being I think more than anything, just being straightforward with what you have. And
Right.
on my website I outlined that if the garment does not have a foul odor, or there's not a stain that I think that I can get out, I do not personally wash garments because I could potentially ruin them.
Correct.
And I have that all laid out on my website. So yeah, there is a lot to learn about how this business works with sort of secondhand. But
Right.
I think it's very similar to used cars. It's very, very similar. If we have that same
Um,
mindset, it's very, very similar. There's going to be usage. Someone had it before you. While it still has life in it, there we have to set our expectations at a realistic, position, to know that
right.
this has been used by someone else, and we're going to do our best to take care of it so that we can extend the life of it.
Right. And I think that's really great because sometimes like just being totally transparent, like, hey, this is what it is,
Hmm.
and what you get is what you get, because
Yeah.
sometimes people do have this expectation like, oh, it's vintage, so it should be perfect. But that's not really the case because someone else, it's vintage for a reason.
Right.
Someone else wore it, it's dated, it's from a long time ago, but it still looks really great. I've seen some of your
Nothing.
pieces.
Nothing about me is perfect. Nothing about me. Nothing about my life. I just, I'm not perfect. Like, I can't, like, and I try to make that very, very evident in the way that I market and present myself. I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to try to be. Don't put that on me because I'm just doing the best that I can.
Yeah. And I've seen some of your pieces. I love them. They're so very
Thank
colorful
you.
and they're very well put together. I did a podcast with someone and we spoke about fashion too.
Mhm.
And I just love it, but I feel like I could never put the pieces together so that they look so like vibrant and nice. So how do you like do you have like a vision in your mind when you're putting these things together? Like how does that work for you as far as putting pieces together?
Man, it's so funny that you mentioned that because it's effortless. And it's something that that you do without second thought. It just
Right.
comes. It's kind of like when a baby is born, they naturally, feed, whether it's from,
Yes.
their mom or from the bottle. And the Lord has given us our own gifts, and I
Mhm.
can see something. I grew up with very little. My parents did the best they could, but I grew up with very little, and I would envision outfits in my mind. Don't make me cry. Okay,
Oh, it's
all right.
okay.
So
You could
I would
cry here, honey. It's all right. We welcome the emotion. It's all right.
I would literally see like people would come to school with like their new Jordans on and their fresh outfits, the first day of school and then right after Christmas break. And I would always visualize, how I would, and I never told anybody this, how I would put this with this and how I would wear this with this and how I would get that one color out of that top and what shoe,
Right.
mix and matching each person's outfit. And I never thought anything of it. Like I'm telling you, this is the first time I've ever mentioned this since childhood. Well, I've never mentioned it, but brought it up since
Mhm.
childhood. So it's also funny that you mentioned that it doesn't come natural to everybody because the Lord has been speaking to me about putting things together
Mhm.
so that people can have a visualization of an item, you know.
Right. Yes.
But yes, it comes to me very natural. I never get tired of clothes. Like I never get tired of doing this. I mean, never. I don't know how to explain it. Like I can do it in my sleep. Like this is the least that I have slept in a long time. I used to go to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Everybody knows Kesha goes to bed. But I be up, like spending time with my business. And I absolutely just I love it.
I think that's the greatest thing about doing something like this is because you love it so much. It's
Yes.
your baby and it
Mm-hmm.
comes so naturally. It's not so then it doesn't even become a job. Like it's not a job. It
Mm-hmm.
is something that you love to do,
Yes.
which I think that more people should do these kind of things. Do the things that they love to do.
Yeah.
Because when you love to do something like you said it comes effortlessly.
Yes. Absolutely. That's your gift. That's your thing.
Yes. And everybody has a thing,
Right.
but you just have to find your way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have children
Yes.
and this is your thing. So how do you juggle this, your business, mom life? How do you do that? Like what does a day look like for you?
Well, that's very interesting you asked me that because it's changing because school is back in.
Yes.
I had my nephew here for a while to sort of keep my boys busy and, company while I worked and did things. And it is very challenging. It's very challenging because my needs change, my boys' needs change, and I just have decided to give myself grace for the day. I'm not going to overly extend myself in thinking about next month or 2 months from now. I'm
Right.
literally doing the best that I can today. With that being said, let's say today is a school day and the kids have came home and I'm in the middle of doing something. If they're trying to tell me something or, um, something is important that they need to share, I need to know, I get them involved because like I'm likely moving, hanging
Right.
something, shipping something. So I'll get them involved so that we're having a conversation, but I'm also doing what I need to get done. They're also learning how to multitask. They're also understanding the dynamics of being an entrepreneur. There's a lot to be. They also see their mom in motion.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times as moms, we can sometimes have that mom guilt that we for things that we miss and things that we aren't and things that we can't be. And those empty spaces are spaces for seeds and things to blossom. So, in my mom's absence, when she worked, we had to cook for ourselves.
Mhm.
So, I know how to cook. You know, I
Right.
had to get the basics of understanding how to prepare a meal. And then that was the seed. She showed me that was the seed. And then I began to build on that. And now I can prepare a multitude of dishes. You know what I mean? So the boys knowing how to package an item, when we get to the post office, I can literally just sit in the car. They know how to scan what to press on this kiosk if the
Mhm.
post office is closed. Put my email in so that I get my receipt. They know how to go check the PO box if there's a key in there, to go check another one. Like, they know what to do. And I think that a lot of times that can be minimized by what our expectation is. But at the end of the day, we don't know what God's purpose is for our children.
Right.
We have a level of expectation, but I pray and I trust that wherever we are, whatever I'm doing, which is the best that I can, is going to be a step each day, each time, getting them closer to where they're going to be able to fulfill their purpose, whatever that is. Like, nothing will be wasted. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Even the mistakes, even when I miss something, even when I forget something, none of that will be wasted, because now my kids say, "Mom, nobody's perfect, you
Mhm.
trying your best, nobody's perfect." So it's good that they have that level of grace, because I mean, in this world, you're going to need it. You're going to need it for yourself and to give it to other people. So we're just working it out. I mean, there's mistakes. Mom forgets things. One time I had a parent, I was on a board, and they had a final in person. We were meeting virtual, and we had an in-person meeting last school year, and I missed it.
Mhm.
I totally forgot. And I was doing a live sale, and I totally forgot. And one of the reasons why they put me on the board is what they chose to put me on the board was because I was a mom and I was a small business owner.
Mhm.
And I was in the community. So that very thing, being on my plate, sort of had me, and they understood. They were like, "I know you have a lot on your plate." It's understood, but most of all, I need to give my own self grace,
Right.
because even if the kids, they are very forgiving, we can sometimes beat ourselves up at night, when we
Yeah.
wake up in the morning. But I would just suggest giving yourself grace and just do the best that you can.
Yes. I love that. I love that. And that has kind of been the conversation. I just came back from vacation. I was away.
Hmm.
And that was one of the conversations that me and my friends were having about just giving yourself grace.
Yes.
Because sometimes we are our own worst critics,
Yes.
and when we miss things, and that mom guilt, let me tell you, that mom guilt is real.
Yes.
I think I talk about this a lot too because, I was feeling that while I was away on vacation. I went
Mm.
with my friends, I didn't have my children. And every day I felt bad because I'm like, I'm away, I'm not in mommy mode, but I'm in mommy mode 24/7. I'm in mommy mode, I'm in work mode, I'm sending my son away to college. He's going to be leaving in 2 weeks, and that has been an experience on its own. And it's just like, grace, grace. That has
You're
been the word.
you're not just a mom. That's not your only, like, role.
Right,
That's not your only obligation. You are a multitude of things.
right.
And if you begin to totally just hone in on that, my opinion, I feel like you can begin to be unbalanced.
Yes,
Because if you're giving all that you can to that role, what about the responsibilities and the obligations that you have to yourself? You know,
right,
what about the friendships that you have, your
right,
family members, your professional life? We have to do our best to live a balanced life, and know that while we are mothers, we have to be humble and know that we are just mothers. That's it. Like, we will never be enough to fully fill every void in our kids' life. That's why that's what the Holy Spirit is for, to be there so that they can know when I'm grown, or when my mom is not available, Lord forbid something happens, I'm not alone in this.
right.
There is still, grace, mercy, favor, help available to me. So I let the boys know too, like, I'm not going to be your all in all. I'm going to try my best, but I can't do it all. And
Right.
I'm married, like their dad, like, tell them, like, I'm blessed to have a husband, because I was a single mom at one time. So I know, oh Lord have mercy. That was a travesty. That was a travesty. Oh Lord.
Yeah.
But I'm blessed to have help just with
Right.
life, period. But I have came to the realization with my cancer journey that I'm not doing as much as I think I am. Like
Right.
the things that are truly taking care of my children, I'm not doing that. I'm not making sure their heart continues to beat. I'm not making sure that they stay well. I'm not making sure that they're safe when they're at school. I'm not making sure that, that they pass that test or they communicate or resist peer pressure. I'm not doing that.
Right.
That's beyond me. So
Right.
with that cancer journey, when I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to die, and I don't want to, leave my children, and what are they going to do? I had to humble myself and say, wait a minute, you're only doing so much anyway. Do the best that you can and trust the Lord to do all of what you aren't doing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you're going to have to
Hmm.
do that today
Right.
in many, many years.
Right.
So yeah, we're just moms. We are
Right.
just moms.
Yes. And I love that. First of all, you just gave me chills because I'm just like, what you're saying is just so accurate. And I'm sure going through your whole cancer journey, things had, come to perspective, right? Because sometimes
Woo!
we don't think about a lot of things until something happens. And it's like, hold on, it's time to slow down now because this is
Yes.
what's going on
That's
right
it.
now.
That's it. That's exactly what happened.
So, as far as your cancer journey, how I'm sure that was very difficult for you. First of all, you look amazing.
Thank you.
Um, and thank God, I'm glad you're well. How was that for you? Was it a long journey? I'm
Oh,
sure it was
girl.
a difficult journey.
Yes, it was extremely difficult. One of the very first things I did was get a therapist.
Mhm.
That was one of the very first things that I did. And I paid attention to how people treated me.
Mm.
And I didn't do that for the reason why people would think that you would do that. I, I, I paid attention to the way people treated me because I wanted to create content or sort of not like a know-how or whatever or how to, but I wanted to give people insight on how to approach a loved one or a friend who has this experience, what not to say, what to say.
Right.
So I paid very close attention to that, and I actually wrote it down, and I haven't released anything yet, but I am. But I got a therapist because I did not want to overwhelm my tribe. And
Gotcha.
I knew that every day, every moment could be a breakdown moment or a happy moment or a light bulb go off moment. Excuse me. And life doesn't stop. People still have to pay their bills. They still have to work. They still have
Right.
their own family. Kids still going to school. So I didn't want to overwhelm my tribe with constant tears I wanted to have not only I wanted to split it up. So maybe not talk to my husband today, but reach out to a friend,
Right.
because he can only take so much. I waited to tell my children, and made sure that I was in a place where I could talk to them and be strong, even if I cried, but just make sure that I could be strong enough to have the conversation, being good to myself in that aspect. Um, but I got a therapist, and that worked out very, very well for me. That helped me out tremendously. In fact, after that was over, I no longer needed one. Like I'm not no longer needed that therapist.
Gotcha.
But that helped me out a lot. And it's funny how you considering other people will in turn be a blessing to you. And that's
Right.
one of the things that my therapist told me at that time was you're so concerned about other people. And that's just the way that the Lord made me. He made me.
Right.
I'm anointed to be able to carry more than just my load. Um and my being true to who I am, it ended up being a awesome experience for me to really let go of, yes, you love people, you want to help people, but understand these hands are only able to do what the Holy Spirit is allowing you to do. And
Right.
again, you're only doing so much. You're not
Right.
doing as much as you like to think that you are.
Right.
So I had to humble myself. I had to come to the realization of it's not what you buy your kids, like TD Jake says, it's not what you leave them, it's what you leave in them. So
Right.
all of the tough conversations that I didn't want to have, that I didn't know how to have, I started trying to gain knowledge of how to have certain conversations and think about things that I wanted to leave to my boys just in case,
Right.
and understand that I don't live for myself. Like, what are you here for? Because you're not here for yourself. Like, what are you here
Mm,
for? So it was extremely
yes.
humbling, but it made me feel so much better. And that sounds so silly and so minute compared to the joy that I felt, because I had an overwhelming amount of peace knowing that, um Lord, you're gonna get the glory through this whole experience. And even if this thing is the thing that, because I'm no better than no one else. So
Right.
anybody else who has been taken out of here due to this thing, I'm not better than them. So who's to say that won't, but even if
Right.
I am going to shout down the rooftops about your goodness and your grace every step of the way. And that's what I did. That's what I did. I worked through that whole journey. I worked every single day. I continued to work. My life, the only thing that changed about my life was going to treatment every day. I was weak. I was extremely
Right.
tired, but
Right.
I kept on trucking. I kept going.
Right. Now that's strength right there.
It
That
wasn't
is
my strength.
yeah.
I was dependent on the Lord's strength. It wasn't my strength for sure.
Yes, because I'm sure waking up every day and working and just going through life at that stage was, I'm sure, like just crazy,
It
But
was.
hey, God's grace. I'm telling you, I'm not a religious person. I don't go to church, but I do believe in God, and I believe that He does great things.
We
That's
have
just
that in
me.
common. We have
Yes.
that in common. I'm not religious at all. I
Right.
have never been a member of a church. I was not
Right.
brought up in church. I am not a Bible thumper.
Right.
I need to know my word a whole lot
Right.
better. I do a whole lot better in that area. I didn't find the Lord in church. I didn't find him through a pastor. I knew that I was different. I always knew that I was different. And my mom raised me, and her and my dad were married, and he moved to Arizona with my brother. They lived in
Mhm.
Arizona, and something was going on, and he was just like, I'm going to take Kesha with me. And I knew he didn't love me.
Mm.
So my mama always told me, because I knew my mom loved me by the way that she treated me. My dad was just so mean.
Right.
I knew he didn't love me.
Right.
And my mom told me what she put in me. She taught me about fasting. And I fast. It was the middle of the summertime. We were going swimming. And I was starving, hungry, but I would not eat. I did a 6 to 6 fast, and I never went to live with him. And that sparked my personal relationship with Christ. That didn't come from no. My mom never. We went to church maybe about 10 times as a kid. That didn't do it
Mhm.
for me.
Right.
I need 101. The Lord knew that. I need 101. So
Right. Yes, that's how I feel too. Like my family was very Catholic, but
hmm
I did venture off into the Pentecostal religion for a little while. And I
okay,
feel like at that point is where I found my spiritual guidance with God.
okay.
I didn't go to church all the time, but when I
hmm
left church, something left with me. So
Mm,
so I took that with me, and I'm like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Like you said, I need that one-on-one. I need the
yes.
one-on-one. Like I can't the church, and sometimes like in when I visited Panama, we went into a church. So
hmm
there's a town called Casco Antiguo, and
hmm
it's like an old town of Panama, and we visited there, and they had a whole bunch of different churches. And as I walked into, and I haven't been to church in years. It was a Catholic church, but
hmm
as I walked into the church, I felt this overwhelming feeling of just, I can't even describe it. It made me cry. Because
Wow.
I just felt like it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful feeling, and I know that that was him. You know,
Mm,
so it's like it's these little things, and I always say you don't
yes.
have to sit in church all day long, but it's these little things. God always reminds you, like, hey, I'm here. I am
Yes.
here, and you got to kind of like pay attention to those things.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I just went off on a tangent, but
You are
anyway,
fine.
anyway, so being an entrepreneur, Keisha, how did that work for
hmm
you? Like, What advice would you give to people? And I always ask this question, right? I think I've asked this on many of my podcasts because I feel like everyone has a different perspective of what it is to be an entrepreneur. And what tips and tricks would you have for people that want to start their own business and want to venture off and want to do certain things for themselves and not be like a slave to the 9 to 5? Because I think I, it's killing me. I hate working a 9 to 5. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I'm grateful that I got a job, but
Mm-hmm.
this right here, this is my element, and I love it so much. So what would you say to anyone that wants to be a business owner?
I would say go for it. I think that there's a big stigma with a 9 to 5.
Hmm.
I think I actually did a video on this. I am in a unique space because I feel like we have multiple gifts.
Hmm.
We have multiple abilities. We have multiple purposes. And again, we don't live for ourselves.
Right.
So while there are things that you enjoy doing and that you may do with not much effort, there may be an obligation, purpose specifically assigned to you in an area that is tedious, uncomfortable, convoluted, that you may need to have dual focus. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you may not like that job, but while you don't like it, you are able to handle and juggle both your entrepreneur what obligations and your 9 to 5. Um, and you may volunteer, a couple days out of the week or a couple days out of the month. But that too can also be sometimes like a job because I did the
Right.
same with volunteering. I think that it looks different for us all. I think that a lot of people have this, like a hairstylist. I seen a post that said people think that being a hairstylist, having a hair salon, is the ultimate accomplishment.
Right.
When in fact, you have to find out what being a hairstylist, what does that look like for you? Does that look
Mhm.
like you doing hair from your home? Does that look like you sharing educational videos on YouTube? Does that look like you owning salons? Does that look like you having a chain of salons? Like,
Right.
what is it, the haircut in place? What does that look like for you? And you determine that, because a lot of people have told me, Kesha, I can see you having a store, and I'm like, no, I'm not working in no store. I'm
Right.
not doing it.
Right.
I appreciate it, but I'm not working in a store.
Right.
And ironically, there have been things evolving where I actually may be about to have a store.
Right.
Um, and I won't have to work in it. So
Right.
it's a thing. But you have to figure out what works for you and what your purpose and your assignment is. Because if you're driving your car and you're looking over at somebody else's, or if I'm driving my car and I'm looking backwards, or if I'm
Yeah.
driving my car and I'm looking down at my phone, I'm not in my lane. I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna veer out of my lane.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that the car that we're driving, which likely has the people that we're responsible for, our kiddos, our family, while we're driving this car, we need to understand that what's in my back seat or in my trunk gonna look different. So what's in my back seat is my boys.
Right.
Somebody else may just be in the car by themselves and they can do
Right.
this and do this and do this and do this. I have a lot of stuff in my trunk because it's a lot of things that come with me because I'm a lot.
Right.
While another person, they may have a couple things. So we
Right.
just have to make sure that whatever we're driving, whatever we're doing, we're keeping our eyes on our own lane and doing what's best for us, because entrepreneurship is not this one box thing. It looks different for us all.
Right. I love that. You just gave me some advice. I'm like, that is a good analogy. That I've never heard that one. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Kesha, for being on the show. Tell the people where
Absolutely.
they can find you, girl.
On Instagram, Bomb Plus Vintage is just straight Bomb Plus Vintage, no special characters. And my website is bombpv, like plusvintage.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Kesha, for coming on the show. Thank you for dropping so many gems. I loved it. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
All right, you take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.